Nedum, do you think Pep already knows his team for Wednesday, or does anything that's happened today influence that decision?
I think he's got a good idea. I think there'll be one or two players like Rodri and De Bruyne who didn't play today who will 100% be in there. Maybe there are one or two final decisions to make, but I think some of that will depend on what these guys are like when they have to recover, because I imagine they'll be off tomorrow, then they'll come in on the Monday and see what people are like physically. And maybe the ones who physically feel a bit better than the others, maybe they'll be the ones who will be preferred for that game. But I think he has a good idea. I think he's got a good idea of what he thinks Arsenal will play like. And as long as these players know how big that game is and the fact that they need to be ready because it'll be a huge test, then whichever team he puts out, I think he'll pick the 11 most confident players. And at this moment in time, I think most people have a rough idea of who that's going to be.
Stating the obvious here, Kieran, slightly, this isn't the time you want to be playing Manchester City if you're Arsenal, is it?
No, and not after the recent run of form of Arsenal as well.
You can use the word debacle. Feel free.
But look, I mean, the last three results from Arsenal, if they had happened over the course of a season spread out, we probably wouldn't have batted an eyelid. But the timing of that matched with the timing of City's form will be a concern for Arsenal fans and for the club.
That's the thing, isn't it, Shaq? It's not only the fact you've given up 3 draws in a row. Manchester City have just continued to batter anyone and everyone who's come in their way.
And that's the thing for Arsenal. You're looking for an easy team, an easy result, just to build back confidence, to rebuild some resolve, given not just the 3 draws, but the manner of the 3 draws. And in all 3 instances, whether Arsenal, West Ham, and
Liverpool.
And Liverpool. It just you feel that Arsenal need a performance to regain that confidence. Giving Southampton the kind of lead that they did is not the start you want to make in any game. They were going through a similarly poor spell, not as bad when they met Manchester City at the Emirates earlier in the season, and look how that turned out. And that was a little bit of an inconsistent Manchester City. With the finish line in so many of the competitions within sight for City, they've hit full stride. And Arsenal or anybody else have to be fearful. But just kind of given how Arsenal's season has panned out, given how much was promised, and given how distant that now looks, it's a daunting task.
Nedum, though, with his Manchester City ways, will sit there and tell us, hey, wait a minute, you're talking about this as if it's going to be easy for Manchester City.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Dan. You're talking about this like it's going to be easy for City. Of course it's not going to be that. I think Arsenal are still top of the Premier League, and even though they've not had the results they wanted over those last 3 games, you can still find positives. And I think in some ways, especially from the outside, seeing those 3 results has almost made people not expect City to win, but their sort of hopes in Arsenal have dropped down just a little bit. Maybe the fan base believes that themselves. And if that's the case, then if Arsenal go and win at the Etihad, then all of a sudden you appreciate that moment just that little bit more. I think their expectations, as I say, have dropped down. So maybe they're not playing with as much pressure as they would have been. I say otherwise. So I'm not convinced that it's going to be the easiest game in the world for Man City. I do understand City's home record is exemplary. But when these teams play, it's usually a very, very good game of football. And the team that wins is the one that's the most clinical, not necessarily the one that plays the best football or is in the best form. As we've just seen yesterday with that 3-3, as we saw today with Liverpool at times, like being tied with Forest, who's got one of the worst away records in the Premier League. It's still football at the end of the day. It's going to be a very, very exciting tie. And those Arsenal players, we've seen they can come from behind. We've seen they can take a lead. And for City, how are you going to manage it? Because it's not going to be an easy game whatsoever. And I think that's what makes it such a special tie.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.